I'm gonna refill my water immediately, and I'll be back in 4 seconds.
Excellent. Well,
Okay.
I just hit the live button, so I think that is the note
That's
that we
perfect.
are starting on. This is what we are doing.
Fantastic.
Hello, everybody that is tuning in. Welcome to the 20 to Midnight pre-stream, sort of pre-launch stream that we're doing as Mike Schubert flees from the scene to
Yes.
hydrate.
It's very important.
It is very important. My name is Gabriel Urbina. I am going to be the Dungeon Master and kind of adventure designer for 20 to Midnight. Joining us is our single player.
Yeah, the only one.
Emma, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Emma Sherr-Ziarko, and I'm going to be playing Calistoga Vance, in this D&D stream. Hey, Rena.
Hello.
Mike, we are live.
Hello.
Mike, who are you? What do you do on this here show that we're planning?
My name is Mike Schubert. I will be playing Satasin Kurtum, and I will be doing my best to roll good things and help the team and play the bagpipes.
Nice. Solid. Okay.
Now, if we know the internet, the person that you are actually here to see is Beth Air, who unfortunately cannot join us for this
Yes.
pre-stream. She will be here for our first episode in 1 week's time. In the meantime, we are filling in her spot on our window with the wonderful character art that our graphic designer Michaela Buckley did for her character. And also, oh my god, we are debuting for the first time ever the 20 to Midnight overlay, this wonderful
Yeah!
window into this world. Michaela Buckley also designed this for us. We are super pumped. We think that it is brilliant and beautiful and was exactly the right tone for the adventure that we're going to go on.
Absolutely. Okay. I'm looking at the stream myself, and it looks like we're a little choppy.
Ooh, okay.
But you know.
This might be a good time to mention that this is as much as anything
Yeah.
a dress rehearsal for us.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a tech run.
We
yeah.
are figuring out all of the things that we need to do in order to have this stream be working completely well. And every time that we think that we've solved all the problems, a new thing creeps up. So thank you all for bearing with us. And please, if tech problems arise, put them in the chat. We will try our best to solve them midstream. And if we can't, we will, at the very least, try to fix them for the first
Okay, great.
official stream next week.
Yeah. Rena says the frame rate's a little low, but sound is good at least.
Look,
so that's
we're all
good.
podcast stuff here.
Yeah.
Video is a
The
wild
important
new
thing.
world, you guys.
Yeah,
oh my god.
it is. We're not used to this. We will figure all this out, but it's good that the sound is good.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
that's what we're in the house for.
Yes.
Um,
Absolutely.
And it's doubly good that the sound is good because later on we're going to be giving you a quick sneak peek into the 20 to Midnight original score.
Yeah.
Created by our very own music maestro, Alan Rohde. So hang on
Genius.
for that.
Yes.
And then very, very later on in the stream, we'll talk about some of the early access Patreon stuff that we have going on, just with a little like day zero supporter tier. Obviously that'll get more fleshed out when the stream is actively going, but for now, if you're like, I like this potential thing so much, I need to support it before it
So
starts,
much. Yeah.
you will get access to some content and a little reward as well. But we'll do that after we answer all the questions that folks had,
That's
either
right.
submitted via the forum or do now in the chat.
Yeah.
Yes, we have the chat right here. Thank you all for chiming in and for giving us the feedback that the sound, at least, is doing good. If you have questions, slap them on there. But as those trickle in, why don't we turn to one that was submitted ahead of time by one of our nearer and dearer people. Let's see. So someone did ask, how did you all choose your respective classes? Emma, you're playing a sorcerer. Mike, you're playing a bard. Kind of how did you arrive at these choices for Cal and for Satis, who you're able to kind of see little previews of next to your names here on our wonderful overlay?
Mike, do you want to go first since you were just talking about this?
Sure. Though it doesn't necessarily make as much sense chronologically, I was very open to kind of picking whatever, and I didn't have like a strong preference. I had played D&D in the past just kind of like with some one shots, and I'd played some other role-playing games and stuff, but this is my first time like truly committing to a campaign. So the other times I had done one-off stuff, I believe my class was like chosen for me. So I didn't feel like I had a particular like, oh, I gotta be this. And I've listened to other D&D pods and stuff, so I kind of knew what was out there, but I'm a pretty easygoing guy, especially when it comes to like games and stuff. I really just like being able to like do whatever helps the team, and that was my approach here. So I knew that Emma and Beth had a bit of more like I feel like both of you were like choosing between like two classes, and it was clear that after a little bit that it was going to be like Emma was going to be in the magic department and Beth was going to be in the fighting department.
In the hitting things department.
Yeah.
Right. So I was like, okay, I feel like some sort of healing stuff would be cool. But I think the only healing I knew was, what's the class that Merle is in?
A cleric.
Balance. A cleric, right.
Yeah.
So I knew that there was a cleric out there, and I remember I was talking to my buddy Steven, who might even be watching this and definitely submitted questions. He played a bunch of D&D in college, and I didn't learn until like way later that he did, and we were friends in college, and I was like, oh, the missed opportunities. But I had talked to him being like, hey, I know you know stuff. I feel like I should be something that heals people, but cleric feels kind of boring. And he was like, have you ever heard of this thing called a bard? And then after talking with him and the other three folks here about it, it just made sense because it was like, I still got to do the healing stuff that I thought would help the team. I still got to do like a little bit of magic. And then it just felt like a really fun class with like lots of flexibility, which is always what I've liked just throughout my whole life. And just like not being like feeling like I'm pigeonholed into like one type of thing. So all those things kind of contributed,
trades, if you will.
Exactly. So that kind of really appealed to me. And then when I learned that bard didn't just mean like music guy, that you could go like storyteller, then I was set in it, because once Gabrielle sent over the like lore of the world and trying to build our characters, there was a story that just like made a whole lot of sense for me, and I was like, oh, this could be a really fun character if I do more storytelling bard as opposed to music bard. So that's how I ended up with my boy Satis.
Yes. Yeah. So I just a little background for for my D&D life is I actually haven't played that much full campaigns. But the two full campaigns that I've played in, I played a druid in both of them. So I was like, okay, I guess I can't play a druid again. But I mean, I could, but come on, let's branch out, Emma. But so I had been wanting to play a fully magic class for a while, and sorcerer for whatever reason was the one I was most drawn to. So that was part of it, and then just for fun, I was actually between sorcerer and paladin, and I still want to play a paladin, and maybe we can do some one shots down the road, and try out some different classes. But I'm very excited. I knew I wanted to play a tiefling, and with Gabriel's amazing lore guide that he sent us, which, speaking of the Patreon, we might release some little bits from that on there.
The lore guide was mostly one page that had written on it in crayon, IDK, do what you want.
False.
Yeah. For those of you who know Gabrielle, that's very in character.
Quickly interrupt just for one moment, Emma, for the sake of possibly letting someone go to bed. Hi.
Yes.
Someone in chat is asking, it is 4:40 in Australia. Will there be a way to watch this later? The dream is, yes, we are recording this and we are hoping to upload it to our YouTube channel, so it should be there in the coming days. please do not completely ravage your sleep schedule. We are funny, but we are not that funny yet. Wait until it's the proper episodes. Those will be worth staying up all night for. But this is just us hanging out. There will be plenty of chances to do it.
Absolutely. Also, I'm looking at the stream now. Sorry. This meta version. It looks like maybe our frame rate's a little better.
That's what I saw too, because I looked at the stream because I was trying to see. Yeah, and I now see someone in the chat. I hadn't seen maybe it's because I joined a little later. But I didn't see what Gabrielle was referring to, so I was like, where is this mystery? Now I can see people. Hello.
Yes.
The aforementioned Stephen Parra is in the chat. Hooray. Because I was like, why can't I see the chat? What's going on?
There is, at any moment, a group of people watching you, observing you, and commenting on it. You just can't see it. You just cannot see them.
Right. Okay, fantastic. So and then I got very excited and came up with a fun backstory for Cal. And I'm really excited to see how it plays out.
Excellent. Folks in the chat, what is your favorite class to play? I have to admit, I mostly have played bards, and I love them as a class. And it's funny that you were saying, Mike, that you had to discover that they're not just music boys, because the longest D&D character that I've ever played, I've been playing him for about 4 years now, is a bard who very pointedly cannot sing. He's a very good violin player, and he's a very good storyteller, but he is very, very tone deaf with his singing.
I love it.
Yeah, it's been a fun class, and I had no preference, and I think this extra speaks to why I picked bard. Like, when it came, is it race where you pick like human versus tiefling versus all that kind of stuff? When it came time to pick that, I was like looking up stuff online, and there was like min-max strategies and all these things, and I was like and then like it was saying, there was like color coded things that was like, this is good for a bard, and this is bad, and this lets you do this. And then I saw a human, it was like human gives you +1 to every roll, and that's it. And I was like, cool, let's just do that. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, that's the benefit to playing humans. Yeah, I had only played elves. I think I was a half elf in my last. I know I was a half elf.
Just elven druids, Emma. That was the brand.
Just elven druids. Yeah, that was my brand. Shocking no one whatsoever.
Excellent.
And I think Beth. I'm not going to speak for Beth, but I think she was considering a druid before.
She was.
I think that is correct. Yes.
She decided to be a fighter. But I'm so glad she decided to be a fighter.
Yeah.
I love Helena. She's amazing.
No, Helena is all these characters are wonderful. Helena is a work of art in her own special way. Great. Well, let's jump on to another question that folks sent in ahead of time. Does the party have a name?
Oh, no.
Ooh.
I don't think we do, and I kind of like that we don't.
Yeah, no. And well, I mean, maybe it will come up organically.
Naturally,
yeah, within the gameplay. But I feel like we've come up with a few slogans for our group throughout the throughout our test sessions, but no name.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And actually, this might be something that might be good to sort of say, and a couple of folks asked questions about this. So just to quickly run through the setup, basically, we are going to be starting session 1. Yes, chat, I see you loving women with swords. The official stated position of 20 to Midnight is that women with swords are great. We love that.
Yes, agreed.
The on-stream game is going to start with these guys at level 3. And before we started that, we've done a couple of kind of test games that are these characters' sort of early adventures. And that way, these guys kind of played through levels 1 and 2 as we kind of all got to know each other and as they got to know my DMing style. And all of that is in the stream itself going to be not canon, but sort of, I think, like rarely discussed canon. It will just kind of be like, the indiscriminate adventures that these player characters had before their real adventure began. But we are going to be kicking off with them at level 3 at the very end of the last test session that they did. Level 3 is what they got to, and that is where we'll be starting.
Yeah, and I think it's fun. Like, I don't want anyone, because we're eventually going to get to a point where we post some of or clips from or pieces of those things as like Patreon rewards once the Patreon is like truly going. But we don't want anyone who's unable to support, like, you know, if you don't have the finances to do it, we don't want anyone to be like feeling left out. So we don't want to have inside jokes and stuff like that. So I think what's important from those early streams, and I think we really hit our stride with the most recent one we did, was just like, we have a good sense of our characters' personalities. We played around with little things like, you know, how they talk, how they act, kind of stuff, and found the groove of them, found out how we work well together. And I feel like, you know, in our brains, the adventures can kind of like shape the team, but we're not going to be like, remember that time, you know, or if that ever does happen, if it does factor with the plot, like, we would certainly make it be known. We don't want to do the thing where it's like, to understand this reference, support the Patreon.
I will share, this is like no spoilers whatsoever, but one fun thing about my character in these test streams. So I have on my character sheet, which I think at some point we might we'll share our character sheets. Yeah. And are our stats up on the?
Yep,
oh yeah, our stats are up.
Your stats are right there next to you.
Look at that. So as you can all see, I chose charisma to be highest. It's not quite as high as Satos because he's
Sorry, I'm just seeing Rena in the chat. You must be a tier 3 subscriber to unlock our tragic backstories. That
absolutely
is the opposite of what we're trying to do. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And it's also like the opposite of tragic backstory.
Yeah.
But so one fun thing that's been happening that I'm really curious to see if the dice will continue rolling this way is I've actually been rolling pretty poorly with charisma tests.
Yes.
And much higher with dex tests. So Cal's a very dexterous sorcerer, which is, you know, super useful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The inside joke patron tier, yes. Totally. But yeah, so what else?
Yeah,
what
our
else?
next question.
Anything else to say about that? Okay.
Our next question is, what was our D&D experience before we started this campaign? Are we all grizzled veterans? Are we all mostly new to this? Sort of like, where are we on that level?
As I mentioned, I've only played a couple like full campaigns before, and when I say full, not really
level
full.
1 to 20 with epic levels thrown in.
Yeah. But yeah, I played one in college as an elven druid, and then Winston, my spouse, was DMing one for us and our friends when the pandemic was happening a couple years ago, and unfortunately we had to put a pause in that. Hopefully we'll pick that back up. But so that's the majority of my D&D experience. I have a lot of other like tabletop and role-playing experience. But D&D wise, I'm pretty green, I would say. I love like D&D podcasts and streams. Yeah. So a lot of my D&D experience has been consuming others' D&D media.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think my first ever like actual getting like familiar with the concept of it with everything was I was on a short form improv team in Seattle where you would play games kind of like Who's Line, and one of them was called D&D in the Life, as like a play on Day in the Life, and you would just like act out a scene, and then you would have to just like roll for whatever action you're going to do, and then the host would roll a die, and then depending on if it was 20 it went well, and if it was 1 it went poorly. So it'd be like, if the scene involves you getting in a car, you would just be like, roll to see how well I drive. And if it's like really bad, then you're an awful driver. Right. But I would even do things like, if we're leaving the scene, like I would just be like, roll to see how well I leave the scene. And like, if you got a 1, like fall on your face as you walk off stage. Right. So I'd done that and it was fun. And then it wasn't until I went to PodCon in Seattle where, obviously.
Where I just was.
Oh.
In Seattle. Anyway,
yeah. And I was actually there very recently too.
I know we just missed each other.
Just crossed each other.
Yeah.
But they like McElroys were obviously involved in that. So one of the first things that I saw, I think the first thing I saw was like they did a Q&A type thing for their D&D podcast, The Adventure Zone. And I was like, oh, I didn't know people like played podcasts and did this. I didn't even know who the McElroys were. So like some of my podcasting friends like showed me the light of that, and I started listening shortly thereafter. And then also in Seattle, I didn't end up playing any D&D initially. I had a friend who like he makes board games as like a side job. He's like an independent board game creator, and some of his games are RPGs, so I'd played those, so I had like RPG experience. And but then after a little bit I like guested on some podcasts and stuff to like play little one shots. But yeah, this is my first time like truly getting into a campaign, and I was glad that you all reached out like with the idea, and I've never replied yes to an email faster than you asked if I wanted to be a part of this.
Oh, that's awesome.
I always say whenever Gabriel asks me if I want to do something, he usually doesn't get to the end of the sentence before I'm like, yes, me,
Same.
yep.
One of these
Agreed.
days, Emma, I'm going to be, how would you feel about, and you're going to say yes, and the rest of that sentence is going to be transferring me your life savings
Yeah.
in exchange for this
Gabriel,
can of
I am
fish
not the
oil.
person to ask for that. Here you go.
How is my balance lower after that
Yeah,
scam? I'm not sure how that worked. It's funny because everyone on the stream is a starving artist.
Yay!
Yeah. No, and to answer that question for myself very quickly, I grew up being very D&D envious. Like, I sort of knew of it as a cultural icon. I got my hands on a couple of the books. I was like, this sounds like so much fun. Oh my god. And then I went to everyone around me and went, would you like to play D&D with me? And the answer was a resounding no. So I kind of spent all of my adolescence sort of reading D&D books and like going through like adventures, but not ever really playing them. And then kind of in college and after it, I got to play a few games of it, which was wonderful. But it was really during the pandemic when one of the things that absolutely got me through, especially that first year, was I started a game with my two roommates that we're still going through to this day. And that was sort of my first time dungeon mastering and kind of designing an adventure. And I thought that it was the most fun thing in the world, and I wanted to keep doing it. And that's how we've ended up here.
So fun.
No.
Yeah. And again, not to speak for Beth, but I'm pretty sure she also had done like one shot before.
Sure.
Where I think she played a cat
Amazing.
somehow.
And I believe, again, let's not speak for her too much, but I believe that was actually a similar tabletop role-playing game called The Witch is Familiar. More than
It wasn't D&D.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I also, speaking of other games, I played Quest last year with some friends, which is basically like very simplified D&D, but still really fun. So I highly recommend Quest if you've like if you've got friends who are intimidated by all the numbers of D&D. Quest is a great option because it's much simpler.
Wonderful.
Anyway, yeah.
Well, guys, we're gonna stream for about an hour. We're a little under halfway through our time. You guys want to listen to some music? You want to listen to a
Hear some
little
of the
sneak
fun
preview
stuff.
of the score for 20 to Midnight?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
Let's get
Which
some
one should we
hype
do?
in the chat.
Yeah, let's go with this one. Our local mad music genius, Alan Rohde, has outdone himself because I went to him and I asked him if he'd be down to create some music that we could play in the background of the streams. And he actually went all out and created not just the music, but this little bit of software that lets me customize the different orchestrations of it, loops the music because we don't know how long certain scenes will run for, and then lets me sort of button it with a dramatic close once certain beats are over.
Wow.
So, pay for a composer, get a software engineer all in one.
Amazing.
This has been a unpaid but very heartfelt commercial for Alan Rhodey. Hire him
Yeah,
for all of your music needs.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I
It's
think this
incredible.
song, I think this is the first one you played
It was.
during one of our test streams, and it was just like, because it's like happy, and it's very good when you're like setting the scene at the beginning of an adventure. And I just like, there's been a couple key moments as we've been gearing up to do this where I just like feel very confident about how much fun this is going to be. And this was one of the moments where I was like, oh, this is just so cool. Like, it's so peaceful and nice sounding.
Needless to say, it will be played once at the start of the adventure and then be bid a tearful farewell
Yeah.
as the non-stop horror and tragedy commence.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I'm glad that you noticed Gabrielle's mug, Rena, because that really set the tone for the whole.
Yes, I goofed up dear watchers of our stream, because I have a mug that says Tears of My Players, which is traditionally what I've
Yeah.
drunk out of every time that we've done 20 to Midnight things. Today,
Yeah.
I mixed up and I grabbed my unseen mug instead. So
Oh my god, I
unfortunately-
have my unseen mug too. It's just you have to
Man.
watch really
closely. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
because
have
it's cold
my
now.
classic water bottle with my Vine sticker on it that I always utilize.
Excellent. Yeah.
Amazing.
All right, folks.
but yes.
Remember, you can put questions in the chat, and we'll hop on those. Otherwise,
Yeah.
let's turn around to more of the questions that folks asked ahead of time.
Yeah.
For example, someone asked, Shubes, why are you such a freaking nerd?
That sounds like Stephen Parra might have asked that one if I had to guess. I think if I'm like trying to genuinely answer this question, I think it's just like I'm very doing YouTube stuff in high school certainly like ramped up my nerdiness. The reason I started doing YouTube in high school is one of my buddies, Adam, who co-hosts Horse with me. He's a couple years older, and he was in college, and he had just started doing like stand-up comedy, and I was 17 and starting to get into stand-up, like just like consuming content of it, but I was obviously not old enough to like perform anywhere. So then YouTube kind of became the place where I would like tell jokes that were kind of the storytelling-y type things if I was going to do stand-up. And then I met a bunch of nerds there, and unsurprisingly, they would be like, "Oh, have you watched Doctor Who?" And I was like, "Huh?" And they'd be like, "Have you watched
Doctor
Sherlock?" And I'd be
Who?
like, "What?" Yeah,
Yeah,
like
what?
I knew none of the things that like they were talking about and all that. So that ramped up the nerdiness. And then as I got into some YouTube things like the Vlog Brothers, who like really embrace nerdiness as just like being passionate about things you love and trying to bring in more folks into the things you love, like then I went like big into that. And I've always, the other thing I think that contributes to nerdiness is video games have always been like my stress relief type thing. And I've just always had that as like, finish a bunch of homework, play just like a little bit of that before going to bed, just like wind down. So I think that's what contributes to me being a big old nerd. I was also good at school and better at school than sports. So I think that'll make you a nerd and not a
Classic.
jock.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Also, can we just accept that it's cool to be a nerd now?
It 1,000% is.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
1,000% is.
Yeah.
Out
Like-
and proud nerd here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right, because I
Me
think
too.
nerd has kind of become to the point where it's just like you can nerd out about anything. It doesn't just have to be like the stereotypically like nerdy things. Like I would consider myself a basketball nerd, like even though that would be not traditionally like something you would consider a person with like pocket protector and
Totally.
stereotype nerd. So I'm glad that nerd has become like a better term of endearment as opposed to a pejorative.
Absolutely. Totally. Looks like we've got some more questions in the chat.
We do.
Um,
Will this crush me like Wolf 359 did? 100%, and that's a guarantee. Yes.
Hey! That's the Gabriel Urbina guarantee.
No, and I mean, for all of my joking about let's make this super tragic and sad and horrible, I'm very adamant about as DM, I am mostly here as referee, and it kind of depends on the choices that you guys make, and it depends on how the dice treat you. And,
Yeah.
depending on that, it might really be a campaign of 3 people taking the world by storm, or it might be a campaign of lots of terribleness happening. But at the end of the day, it is kind of about like the give and take of your choices and the randomness of the world.
Yeah.
I think that's a testament to how good of a DM Gabriel has been just in these like earlier things, is that I've not felt railroaded, which is great, because you want to feel like you are playing D&D and not playing, you know, a story game on PlayStation where it's like you have to open the door. You cannot go anywhere else. You must fight the thing.
Right.
Yes.
So I think that's been fun, and it has led to some silly things, which could be a bonus clip we either put on Patreon or the social media, where we fought a pile of dirt for a really long time because we thought it was important.
Yep, we did.
And you know, and
Turned out to be kind of important, but not really.
And it is interesting as a DM to have those moments where it is, you know, I thought that we were gonna do X today. I am loosely keeping an eye on the clock and on the fact that I want us to at least get to a somewhat satisfying narrative resolution today. On the other hand, you guys want to spend 20 real-life minutes picking on a pile of dirt.
Like that dirt
Who am I to stop you?
was
Who
asking
am
for
I?
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who am I to say that your characters can't or wouldn't do that? Absolutely no one. I do not have the authority to do that.
No.
Okay, we got some more fun ones in the chat.
Yes.
Anomalies asks, how do you find playing online versus playing around an actual table? I have done both, and honestly, I maybe it's just a testament to all of us like being podcasters and being used to like having a lot of remote stuff going on even pre-pandemic, but like it's honestly still felt really great. Obviously things are more fun when you're like in person and stuff, but
Yeah.
I really have felt just as fun vibes from doing this remote as I have from the games I've played in person.
And I think
Absolutely.
I think that there was also sort of like a month and a half when we were first talking about this, when there was a big question of, are we going to try to have a virtual tabletop? Are we going to try to use one of those programs? Are we going to try to do, you know, Roll20 or any of those sorts of systems? And we eventually kind of arrived that we're just going to do theater of the mind. We kind of want to focus on telling the story. We want to focus on kind of, you know, just like getting through the actual fun interactions part of it, as opposed to kind of the whole, all right, hang on, let me load up the map. Why is the map not loading? Okay, wait. Let me turn on this thing. Let me set this up over here.
Right.
And honestly, I was a little nervous about, are we going to be able to keep track of everything, just like playing a theater of the mind style? And I've never wanted to look back even once. Like, we just kind of hit the ground running and did it, and it's been wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the way to go, for at least for us at this moment. You know, when we're making like hundreds of thousands of dollars, you know, then maybe we can. Yeah.
Oh no,
obviously.
then we're gonna Dimension 20
Then
this and
we're-
have those
yeah,
custom
yeah.
models and, you know, things that they do. Absolutely.
Exactly. But yeah, no, it's been really great playing virtually. I mean, I think it's by virtue of being podcasters, and also just, you know, I played some, or the second campaign that I played was also virtual. And so I think there's a lot, you know, there's some that you miss. And as I was telling these folks, I'm already excited about a live show. I'm getting ahead of myself. But it's been really wonderful, and to have that kind of flexibility, and also to be able to do it. And in case you didn't realize, the reason why we're doing it at this time is because Beth is in the UK, and the fact that we can do this with the three of us, at least right now, we're all in different time zones.
Mm-hmm.
And Beth is obviously, she's in London, so the fact that we can do that is incredible, you know, and I'm really, really excited about that.
100%.
Yeah, and that's what's nice about us doing it with like Twitch, YouTube, and all the ways where we can have people consume it after the fact, is that like if that time works for you, cool. But also, you know, as we always do when we make any of our other things, like you try to keep every audience in mind. And I think that watching it live is going to be just as enjoyable as watching it after the fact. Like, it's not going to be like, oh, because I wasn't there live, it feels different. You know, we're going to just be telling the story, and it's not like a, you know, you had to be there kind of thing. So if for whatever reason you can't watch it, or you're busy or whatever, you know, it should be just as fun.
Yeah,
As someone, sorry, I was just gonna say, as someone who spent the past year watching old Critical Role videos, I am excited for the people like me, hopefully, to watch these after the fact on YouTube.
No, and I think that, I love you, chat, but I think that we're mostly going to be interacting with you when we do these kinds of behind-the-scenes videos.
Right.
Whereas when we're sort of doing story videos, it will sort of be a little bit more, let's stay on target, let's stay focused, let's stay in the world of these heroes and this story. And I think that will also help to kind of make it feel like if you are there for the live stream itself, that's great. But if you are joining it later and sort of seeing the archival version, you're not seeing a bunch of people have a party that you can't go to.
Yeah.
Right. But the joy of us being a thing where we're going to post every other week is that does give lots of room for us to do stuff in the in-between weeks if we wanted, and trying to do Q&As on a regular basis, especially for like big landmark things. If we feel like we've finished like an arc, if you will, we can always be like, hey, on the off week, let's do this in between.
Which actually, I think that is... I don't know if we've talked about sort of our current schedule plans.
Yeah.
At least sort of in a solid way as that. But as Mike just said a moment ago, the current plan is that we're going to be doing D&D streams Wednesdays at 2, but every other Wednesday. So we'll be sort of doing the 12th, then the 26th, then 2 in November, and so on and so forth. But the dream, and we really want to try to do this, is that some combination of us will try to sort of be doing as much as possible during the off weeks fun things here. And it might kind of be chats like this one, or it might be a competitive tic-tac-toe tournament, or it might be, some other very, very silly thing. But like we kind of love the idea of having the flexibility of 1 week we're on, the next week we're kind of just doing whatever's fun that week.
Yeah. And I would love for it to kind of take the space of like not like letting ourselves come through the Twitch channel and not being like, well, it only has to be these high production like 20 to midnight whatever. Is like if Emma wants to hop on and stream her playing a video game, like and if it's in an off week, it's kind of like anything goes. Like if I wanted to be like, am I any good at GeoGuessr? Like just like trying to do that kind of stuff could be fun. Like
the Sporkle quiz Wednesdays are gonna be tight.
Right. Or like me kicking Lord Raddington, the computer in Dominion.games, kicking Lord Raddington's butt and, my mortal enemy. So just doing fun stuff every now and then just to like get stuff out there.
Totally. I do want to answer the question that several folks have asked about. Team Dice Goblin. I am slowly working on hoarding a Laura Bailey-esque collection of dice. That is my goal. As of now, I've got several sets of dice, but we might be doing some dice video reveals on the Patreon as a little teaser to what you're gonna get. But yes, I am definitely Team Dice Goblin.
I am not as much.
I am not as either. Yeah.
Because I mainly because I haven't played a lot before, but it was also just kind of like the only I've received 3 sets of dice in my life, all as gifts, and that is the only dice that I have and plan on doing. Just because, like, for me, I know that if I bought one thing of dice, it would be like the slippery slope would be vertical.
Don't do it.
Like,
because once you do it, then it's like, now I can buy all the dice.
And I have to do this just like in my life. Like there's some things where it's gonna like I have lots of pairs of like fun patterned socks, but like thankfully socks like aren't incredibly expensive, so it's an okay hobby to kind of have.
Yeah.
I had to like avoid this with like cool sneakers, where I had like a brief run where I like in a short span of time bought like 4 or 5 pairs of like cool sneakers, and then I was like, I need to stop immediately, otherwise it will never end. So I think dice is the same kind of thing. Like, and I've seen some really cool dice where like instead of a 1 it says like fuck or whatever, or like instead of 20 it says yeet or whatever, fun stuff. But thankfully very recently, which I will do on my dice reveal video on Patreon, I was gifted the coolest set of dice I've ever seen, that I didn't even know like was a thing you could do with dice. So I will share a video of those, but it was like, here, these are these dice and they have this characteristic about them. And I was like, you can do that? What? So I think I will avoid it. Also, by someone who lives in New York City, space is at a premium and I cannot have extra things that I don't need. I only need one set of dice. I technically need 0 because we could play online, which one of the other questions Dr. Froman asked in the chat was, are we going to use dice at our desks or Roll20? I think we're all doing dice at our desks just because it's just more fun.
I think every now and then someone is like, the dice are not treating me well. I'm going to try like online dice and see if they treat me better.
There was definitely a couple of sessions where my physical dice were treating me very badly, and so I had to turn to D&D Beyond.
I don't know if those treated you any better though.
I'm not sure they did. I think it was just a cursed day, but also I've gotten new dice since then,
and they were definitely better to you.
Definitely better. Definitely better.
The other thing that I am definitely using D&D Beyond for is just, and this is just because I'm new, is like, if it's something more complicated than just like roll the D20 or the D10 or whatever, if there's lots of like pluses and all this, like I definitely been using that, and I could see like eventually, if it got to a point, I'm not strong enough to where I'm rolling lots of D whatevers, but if I do have one where it's like roll 66s, I might be like, ooh, I could just click a button.
Yeah.
Like that is absolutely an issue with higher level spellcasters, especially, where all of a sudden it is like, please roll 12 D6s, and then it's just kind of like, all right, let's just speed through this.
And for like behind the curtain purposes, like I always have my character sheet up, and with D&D Beyond, you can just like, it's got all the stats, but you can just like click whatever the stat is if you're doing that check.
It's very smooth,
So if there are like more complicated things, whether it be an attack or like other things, like I want to make sure I don't, like I really want to make sure I don't cheat. So when there were things like, you know, an attack or a to like try to death save, like to not have your character die, I was like, let me click this button so that I don't like accidentally give myself too many points when I'm not supposed to, because I truly want to be like as authentic as possible. So little bits of that, but I think for the most part we're doing physical die because it's exciting.
It's just more fun.
It is just more fun. Yeah,
absolutely.
Someone also asked in the chat if it was from a book or a new story, and I believe it's 100% Gabriel Urbina brain. Yeah.
With inspiration. Yeah, I was going to say with sort of, I think that in many ways it is the D&D campaign that resulted from all those years as a teenager reading all of the like published adventures and now being kind of like, what if I could put like all the coolest pieces of it together in like a new thing? But it is not Curse of Strahd. It's not Tomb of Annihilation or sort of like any of the published adventures. It is something new, and it is very fun and interesting at the same time to kind of be designing ahead of you guys, but trying to keep myself from designing too far ahead, because again, I want to be very cognizant of, I don't know if you guys are going to go north or south. I don't know what you're going to find interesting or fun. And I especially don't know what's going to feel right when we are playing together. So there is a certain amount of, I am planning for possibilities, but I am not yet sort of completely fleshing out the story. I kind of know where we're starting, and I know what the crux of it is going to be, and I know why there's going to be a time crunch element for it. But beyond that, I'm trying my darndest to not put too many rails in front of you guys by designing an adventure completely fleshed out ahead of time.
Yeah. Gabrielle, would you consider revealing anything about the world that you've created for these people tuning into this pre-stream Q&A? I'm putting you on the spot.
The answer can also be no.
Yeah, it can be.
So I think that sometime in the next week there is going to be a quick video that I'm working on that is just going to be, here is the world of Keldoren, which is sort of the very, very, very standard D&D world that we are going to be playing in. I will confirm that it is kind of, you know, like a very basic, no whistles attached D&D world. It's not going to be you know, D&D, but it's also a 1980s high school, the way that not Adventure Zone, that Dimension 20 has done. It is sort of these are high fantasy characters going on a high fantasy adventure. But the thing that I thought was fun is that I wanted to give you guys a choice about what nation and what part of the world your characters came from.
Yeah.
And so I kind of created small guides to each of the nations in the world, and then I sort of told you guys, pick what nation you're coming from. There's 6 options, and each one is associated with a +1 to a different stat.
Right.
So if you had come from the Veldran Empire, that was a +1 to strength. If you had come from the Holy Empire of Amar, that was a +1 to wisdom, and so on and so forth. And I thought that was an interesting way to kind of not just be like, here's a bunch of lore, please read it as homework, but to actually kind of be like, here is a mechanical way to do that, while also getting to have sort of, here is the desert kingdom, here is kind of the like super religious country, here is kind of the underground techno world, here is the ice kingdom, and so on and so forth. But yeah, I think that we'll talk more about that soon, ahead of episode 1.
Awesome. Cool.
And to answer the question Hanamalu's just posted, to kind of touch off that for like the tone, it definitely has like the classic old school D&D like setting, but I like that it's felt like we can kind of do whatever we want with like making pop culture references and stuff kind of that, and like it doesn't feel like it has a set like it is the year whatever, and like we're not trying to like thee and thy it and all that kind of stuff, which I think it's like the focus of this is it's more about like us having fun and the personality, and less like feeling like, well, we have to stick to like this exact type of world 100%. And this exact type of rules. And I appreciate that Gabriel's like found a way for us to, still play in the space and allow us to make our choices without being like, no, that doesn't work in this world, try again. And I think that's been fun, and I think that's what's cool with the vibe, is that it doesn't feel like there's like strict parameters we must do, but the core of like what we know about the world and what has been established on these little sort of like side questy type things we've done is like, we know what the key thing is, we know what the objective is or what we got to do. And then Gabriel answers any questions that we have, but it doesn't feel like we're put in a box or a cage. And then if someone wants to do something on the sillier end, there's lots of yes-anding, which as improv boy, I really appreciate.
Yeah.
No, it is very much sort of a, I think that unlike a lot of people that have spent a lot of time playing D&D, I actually haven't played that much D&D in sort of a classic old school D&D, like typical 5e world.
Right.
So I'm enjoying kind of getting to play in a version of that sort of like very normal high fantasy world, quote unquote normal.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't want to sort of be like, whoa, Mike. These people wouldn't say, hey, the traditional greeting would be, what ho, traveler. Because that sucks. And on the other hand, there's also, I don't want to be playing D&D. I want to be playing D&D with the 3 of you, and I want to sort of incorporate your ideas and your aesthetics and the things that you bring into it. And I mean, spoilers, as soon as you said that your character was called Satis Incertum, it was kind of like, great, I now know a whole bunch of stuff about the aesthetic of the nation that Satis comes from that I did not know before. Just because that is a very particular flavor and a very particular vibe. And I think that the same way that like Michaela picked up on that exact vibe without the 2 of us ever talking about it when she was designing his clothing and his aesthetic and his style. It was just kind of like, yeah, great, Mike brought something here. The most fun thing will be to run with it, not to kind of be like, I don't know, I don't know how we feel about this.
Yeah.
And I think by doing it to where it's like a classic like high fantasy kind of thing, and not being like, it's an 80s high school. I think what's cool about that is like, I feel like high fantasy means something different to everyone. Yeah. Especially to me, someone who's like not consumed a lot of high fantasy content. I'm like, yeah, anything's possible. Like they have high tech technology and they also do magic. They could fly. Sure. So what's fun about that is like, I don't feel like we're putting like this, if it was like more of a real world thing, not to say that that's not fun. Like those kind of things are fun, but because there's no real world thing of like, oh, it's in the 80s, like this hasn't been invented yet. It kind of feels like anything's possible.
For
which
sure.
is fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not sure what I have to add to that. I think that's a great introduction to the world without giving too much away.
To confirm what Elizabeth had said in the chat, definitely superstitions are a thing. As someone who played baseball the most growing up as a kid, I am mad superstitious. So
Okay. I never played baseball, but I was such a big baseball fan that I had superstitions as a watcher and consumer
100%.
of baseball.
Oh, if the team
And
is doing well and you're in a chair,
No.
you can't get up to pee.
No, not at all. And like if they're doing well and someone comes into the room, they can't stay. They gotta go. They gotta go. Yeah. Yep.
I have nothing to add to that other than I had never seen a game of baseball until earlier this year when Mike took me to Yankee Stadium and showed me my first ever game of baseball and did a tremendous job of breaking down how this honestly way complicated sport works and all the different parts of it and making it very, very fun. So thank you again for that.
It's all good. It's the least I could do for the number of questions that I will ask you over the course of this campaign.
Yeah. We'll trade knowledge. Back a little bit earlier, someone had asked how
Emma's
long
like, back
we've
on
been
target.
planning this.
Back on
No,
target.
I'm sorry. I could talk about baseball a lot more. But so someone asked how long we'd been working on this. And it's been a while.
It's been a second, yeah.
Yeah, Gabriel, I think you talked to me about it like back in January.
I was gonna say, like, it was definitely this year, but it was, I think, winter of this year.
Yeah. And I remember us being like, yeah, this is great. So much easier than podcasting. We can get this
It'll be a
started in
cinch.
like a month. Yeah.
And and to be fair, I think that the things about it that stopped it from happening within a month is that we sort of, as typical to us, decided to be pretty extra. And we were like, let's actually get like some nice art. Let's like create some art for the characters. Let's spend some time creating lore. Let's talk about getting music. Let's sort of like really get our aesthetic ducks in a row. And turns out that doing that while also working full-time jobs and creating other shows is a task and a half.
It is. I'm so excited that it's starting though.
Yeah.
And I think it's good. Like, it's something where like I think we put a lot of work in the pre-production end, so that I think once things are going, it can be nice and smooth and fun and not, just more carefree.
Yes.
These are our last couple of minutes here today. So if anybody has any kind of last questions to put in the chat, now would be the time. I think there's even a couple that we haven't hit on yet, so we can definitely answer those. But consider this sort of your last-ish call for questions.
Yeah, as someone asked Gabriel if you would ever consider publishing. Elizabeth asks if you'd ever publish it after it was finished.
I mean, maybe. I think
Let's see.
Yeah. And it's one of these things where, I think that it's very difficult to be thinking, because I'm going to be sort of thinking it as I'm designing an adventure specifically for these three people. And so then kind of going, well, here's the more abstracted, template-y version of it might take a second. But I mean, maybe. I mean, if it goes really, really well and there's actually demand for it, we might figure out a way to do it. Sure. Why not?
Ooh, this is a good one. What are each of you, Dr. Froman asks, what are each of you most excited about for the campaign?
Tragic PC deaths. Yes.
Yep. Obviously. Fill that mug, Gabriel. I think I'm most excited because we have been playing together for a bit, but I feel like we've just kind of scraped the surface of our characters, and I am very excited about getting to know these characters better, both within the world and also just as the players of these characters, because already, after the few sessions we've had, like Cal is totally different maybe not totally different, but she's different from how I originally conceived her. And so I'm excited to see how that continues.
No, I think that they've all kind of gotten a little bit sharper just for you guys,
Yeah.
giving them a couple of test drives. I think that Helena is much more of a daredevil and much more of a risk taker.
Oh my god, she's so much more chaotic than
Beth
the
was
rest
originally
of,
playing
yeah,
her as.
yeah.
Yeah, and for me, like, I guess a peek behind, which I'm sure will come out in the streams too, but Satis and Curtum is like, it's Latin for uncertain origin, which the whole like inspiration of his character was a joke of when you watch like Spartacus or whatever, and then like people's accent doesn't actually mean anything; they just talk old, and you're like, yes, you're from Greece and / or Rome,
yeah.
So I was gonna start just like making him like a joke of that, but as I did it more, it just became like, I was like, oh, it's less fun if I'm like always talking dramatically. I can't really convey emotion. So that kind of turned into just like talking with a deep voice. And then as I kept doing it, I was like, I'm having the most fun when he's like ear to ear smile the whole time. So now he's just like deep voice, happy boy, happy to be around his newfound friends. And he's like certainly, I think, become like a more fun thing that was different than what I initially anticipated doing. And I think what I'm looking forward to most is like, just from doing like stream 1 to test stream whatever that we did, I feel like our characters are like coming closer. I'm coming closer to everyone involved like as friends, and I'm just excited for like both things, for just like there to be more harmony and all of that. And you know, like I had worked sporadically with Gabrielle and never like directly on anything before with Emma, and Beth was like very someone I like knew of, but haven't worked with. So just getting to like do stuff with the other three on a long-term basis is going to be really fun, and I'm excited for that. Just like story outside, just like chilling with you guys.
No, and I think
totally.
and I think that is also worth saying, that a big part of the impetus for this project was I love telling stories with the three of you. And I think that I have not loved telling a story more than the way that I love telling Wolf 359 with you, Emma, where we were sort of telling a story with characters over a long period of time, and week in, week out. And ever since that's been over, the financial realities of life and of producing things and of how much time we have has made it not possible to tell another story in that style again.
Right.
And likewise, Mike, you know, it's been fantastic to work with you on Time Bombs and on 0 Hours, but it's kind of been like, great, thank you for this magical day in the studio. We'll do this again one day, maybe, hopefully. And so getting something that was sort of, look, this might be the world's most chaotic, shambolic D&D stream. It might be something that we are not that amazing at, although I think that we're having a good time doing it. But at the very least, the guarantee of I'm going to get to spend time with these people, telling a story, exploring some characters, and doing that 2 times a month for however long we think that it's fun. I was like, it could be a lot worse than that, and I would be very in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to second that. I mean, Wolf 359 was the most amazing experience because we did get to tell this story over many years, and there's like nothing like that, and that's an actor's dream. And also just like a creative person, something like this is really fun and exciting, and then as a nerd to be able to do it while playing D&D, it's a no-brainer. And also, Mike, like we'd been on each other's respective podcasts but had never like performed together
exactly,
and or spent like significant time together. And Beth, I've always just been a huge fan of, and she is just the most delightful person and a phenomenal actress and amazing at D&D. And so I think it's gonna be really, really fun.
Yeah.
Also, I just wanted to share, since you told the story of how you came up with Satus and Kurtum, I have a tradition of naming my role-playing characters after wine terms or wine places. So Calistoga, though it's spelled with a K, is a reference to Calistoga in Napa, which is a town in Napa in wine country.
That's very fun. I didn't know that. Cool.
Yeah,
the other thing that Elizabeth put in the chat that is cool, Elizabeth said, I'm excited to meet a new community. And that's something else I think is cool, is that like, I feel like there's enough like people who listen to my shows that also listen to your shows and Beth's show. Like there's enough of like people liking one of the things we do and either also knowing the other thing or maybe not as well, that like eventually when we get things set up, like we've got the Patreon. We've got the social medias. Yeah, we should. And then I think one of the things ideally we would work towards, whether it's a goal or not, we just kind of have to figure it out, is like adding a Discord to the Patreon could be really fun to where like bringing our, like that's always been one of the most fun things with my podcast is seeing the community grow. And I think this will be another really fun thing too. So yeah, that's a segue to say we do have the Patreon. It is patreon.com/20 to midnight. So T0 to can I chat? Oh yeah. Ho 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 ho. I think that I got to spell the word right. That would work. But that should work. Let me try clicking the hyperlink.
There you go. Yeah.
All right. Cool. So yeah, we now we just have
Tom Idnight as it currently appears in my screen. Yeah.
Gabriel, I feel like that was a dig at me, and
no. No, but
we'll tell that story
another
time.
in the Patreon chat. Yeah.
But we've got that set up, and right now it's just like your very basic $5 a month just for like thanks for if you support this before anything is live. And right now we're just gonna like post some extra things, like Emma had mentioned, showing off what our dice look like. We're trying to toe the line right now between like what content should we post on the social, what should be behind the scenes stuff. Eventually on the Patreon we'll do like more like produced behind the scenes content, if you will, like whether that's Gabrielle sharing some of the story stuff or us sharing like either clips of or particular streams. More behind the scenes things will be there. Right now it's just we're going to put up some stuff between now and the stream going live, and then also we'll give you a thank you at the end of the first stream. So that's what we've got right now, and then eventually we'll add more tiers. So if you wanted to give more than $5 a month in exchange for more bonus stuff, then like heck yeah.
And if you joined, it would be a critical success, and you'd get to hear this sound.
Oh,
I love it.
I just want to roll 20s just to get that. Like, screw the implications of the story.
Yeah,
I want my Pavlovian. I did a good job with my random chance thing.
Absolutely.
Well, and we're going to save the critical failure chime for when that actually happens in the story.
For Cal's next charisma check.
Yeah, for Cal's next charisma check.
Alan outdid himself making us little critical success and critical failure charms. So look forward to that. And
Alan's
I think
amazing.
with that, thank you all so much for hanging out with us, for asking great questions, for being excited. We are really, really, really hyped to finally be able to share this thing and these very, very silly games and these amazing characters that the three of them have come up with. So we're really, really, really looking forward to seeing you all back here in 1 week's time for the very first episode.
Holy smokes.
Looking forward to it.
I'm nervous. I've been a voice actor for so long. I'm so excited. Thank you all for tuning in. This was awesome.
Yeah, this was very fun. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't so you don't miss stuff.
Do it.
Yes. Smash that follow button.
One more time for the road. And we'll see you all next week. Have a good week. Talk to y'all soon.
Bye.
Bye.